Hello again and welcome to Jeti Telemetry Episode 2. In Episode 1 we looked at connecting up a sensor and getting the telemetry to your transmitter. Now let's look at some of the things we can do with that telemetry. We'll look at how to put it here on the visual front display, and we'll look at how we can use it to give us some voice output and some alarms. I'll try and keep this video to no more than 10 minutes and in such time we do have to just skim over things, but you get a good idea of how to set about it. And then in future videos we can look at doing more complicated things with it. So without further ado, let's go in. We'll have a look at menu, down to timer sensors. And the first thing we'll do is have a look at the visually displayed stuff, displayed telemetry. This is what will turn up on that front screen. Because we created a timer, the Jeti automatically puts a timer into the displayed telemetry for us. But if you don't want that on the front screen, you can just come down to it and delete it if you want. Okay, what else can we add to that front display? Well, the obvious one is some data that comes from just having a receiver. You don't need to have any additional sensors for this. The receiver will generate it. And oddly enough, it's put in not telemetry, but system. And they are the voltage of the receiver. Use double size, yes or no. Now these are interesting. I'm going to show you both of them. First of all, I'll use a double size, no. I'm going to add another one. Receiver voltage, double size, yes. Say OK to that. Let's go back to the front screen and have a look. This is the difference between double size. There's double size, no. There's double size, yes. Obviously the box is double the size, but there is more data in it than in a single size. The single size is showing the live voltage. The double size is showing the live voltage, but it's also showing the minimum voltage that it's recorded during this session and the maximum voltage it recorded during this session. Now, that could be of interest to you. You might want to know at the end of a flight what your highs and lows were. Okay, let's go back to timer sensors, displayed telemetry. We'll take out the double size one for the moment. We'll delete that. And what else can we add in? Once again, we'll have a look at system, and we can add in antenna. Use double size, no or yes. We'll say no here because I'm using a single receiver. But if I was using a central box 200 with two satellite receivers, or indeed I had a satellite receiver plugged into this receiver, etc., we've got 4 aerials. So I'd use a double size box then so I can see all 4 aerials. So just use that for the moment. And let's have a look at that. Here we are, the antenna. Notice it's giving us 3 sets of figures. A1. And if we look at the receiver, there indeed, here is A1. So it's aerial 1. A2, aerial 2. So we now know how each aerial is performing. And this is the number of returned telemetry packets that have been received satisfactorily by the transmitter combination both ways. We'll talk about this for a moment. The score here on the aerials is out of 9. So aerial 1 is receiving strength 9 out of 9. That's good. Aerial 2 is receiving strength 9 out of 9. That's good. They should be. They're sitting inches away from each other in the workshop. What if these numbers drop? 8, 7, 6, 5, whatever. Don't start to get worried, is the general advice, unless that number drops below 3 out of 9. That's when it's starting to get a bit weak. What about this number? Well, that's basically the quality of the data. The transmitter sends a packet of data out to the receiver. The receiver gets it, does its computery checksums on it, says, yes, this data is nice and valid, it's not been damaged by reflections or interference en route. I'll send a notification back to the transmitter that I have received it. And the transmitter gets the notification back and it says, haha, we're getting everything, everything's getting there satisfactorily. I'm getting the notification back. Quality of the signal is 100%. What happens if some of those packets get damaged on the way to the receiver by interference, or band's really busy, or they're reflecting off lots of metal? Let's say that the receiver says 60% of them have got through satisfactorily, and it sends back notification to the transmitter, and all of the notifications back to the transmitter get back to the transmitter. It will say 60%. However, suppose all of your packets from the transmitter to the receiver get there satisfactorily, without damage, without being blocked, no interference. Wouldn't the receiver report back 100%? Well, it tries to. But suppose the return packet on telemetry saying, I received your message satisfactorily, gets lost in the general interference, the noise floor of the band. And suppose only 60% of those packets get back to the transmitter saying 100% got through. Well, the transmitter will report 60%. So it's a mixture of what satisfactorily got to the receiver and what satisfactorily got back to the transmitter saying that the receiver had received it. So even if that number drops below 100%, it doesn't necessarily mean that the receiver didn't get the data. It could be that the confirmation coming back to the transmitter got blocked, interrupted, corrupted, whatever. And that's actually more likely because the telemetry signal coming back is weaker than the outgoing signal. So even when that gets very low, it's a warning, like, get the model closer to you, check out what's going wrong. But if it gets very low, don't panic that you're immediately about to lose control, because it could be that the signal getting to the receiver is still good enough, but that the weaker telemetry coming back is now getting totally blocked. But it is a warning. Do something about it. As a rough analogy, and this is an analogy, these are sort of how loudly the receiver is hearing something, and this is how well it's actually hearing. Now you can imagine somebody trying to talk to you in a very large room. There's only two of you there. The other person is whispering. The volume that you will hear from them whispering a distance away is very low. But because you're in a quiet room, you could still hear every word they're saying, so the quality would be 100%. But if the room is very crowded, it's a noisy party, the music's banging away, the person can be shouting in your ear. The volume is going to be 9 out of 9, but you still can only make out half the words they're saying. So it'd be 50%.
Inactivity alarm.
Thank you, dear. It would still be 50% data quality. So these numbers can drop, but the quality can remain high. A lot depends on the background noise. Okay, enough about that. Let's move on. Let's look at displaying data from the MUI itself. So we go back into here, timer, sensors, display telemetry. Now we're going to add another one, and this time it will be from the telemetry. And remember, we named our MUI motor before, so we can add the voltage. I won't use double size. I can add the current, and these will be live current values, and I'll add always, really I think one of the most interesting ones, capacity. No, let's go back and look at our front screen. Okie dokie. So we've filled up the front screen now. We've got voltage, current and capacity from the MUI, which we named motor, got our antenna data, receiver voltage. Let's add in another one just for the sake of the demonstration. Display telemetry. In fact, I'll change one of them. I'll change the voltage to be a double one. Okay, so what does that do to the front screen? there, our voltage, and it's showing highs and lows. Now, what has happened to our milliamp hour counter, which was down here? Well, of course, the voltage one's expanded, so the milliamp hour counter has gone somewhere. A second page has been opened up. See, we're now on page 1 of 2, and we move between the pages with the left and right buttons. So there, we're now on page 2. There's our capacity. Back to page 1. Now, suppose you think to yourself, yeah, you can end up adding lots of stuff to page 2, but it's not the way round I like. I've ended up with stuff on page 2 that I want here on page 1. No problem. We control the sequence that these are shown in simply by the sequence that they are in that displayed telemetry screen. So go into displayed telemetry, and you see, remember from the top left there was timer, there was voltage, then it went to the top right with the antenna, the motor voltage, which was double, the motor current. See this line here? That tells you you've gone on to the second page. So there's the item on the second page. So let's move the motor capacity up into page 1, which of course will bump something else down to page 2. And you simply highlight the one you want and use the up-down arrows to change the sequence. In fact, let's put it all the way above voltage RX. So now our front screen should show timer, motor capacity, then it has the Jeti name block below it, and then it'll jump up to the top right with voltage RX, blah, 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 blah. And if we wanted that big double voltage box on the next page instead, we can highlight it, move it down, and as you can see, that's moved motor current up. Lovely. Let's have a look at that. And indeed, there we are. Timer, capacity, voltage, antenna, motor current, and then on page 2 is the voltage. So now you can add in the telemetry you want to the visuals. You can manipulate it around to show it the sequence that you want. And because I spoke quite a long time about the antenna and Q values, we've already reached 12 minutes. So I'm going to call it quits there. And in episode 3, we'll look at the voice output and the alarms.